I get the feeling that if you walked up to someone just randomly on the street and asked them, "What is your favorite opera?" I think most people would probably say Bohemian Rhapsody. If you're like me, you grew up on classic rock radio, and our only exposure to opera was groups like Queen that played rock music but had this crossover into opera. Well, this week I got to talk to the Empire Trio coming to the Dalles on March 7th. This trio describes themselves as a classical crossover group. So they've taken their classical music skills and their opera singing skills and crossed over into a Broadway show tune show. We'll talk to David and Erin, 2/3 of the group, husband and wife duo. And this week they were touring in Louisiana. Their third member was off touring in Switzerland. So before we got started, we had to figure out what time zones we were in. And once we got that all straightened out, we had to talk about their band, what to expect for the show, and a lot more. My name's Jim Drake. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks for supporting Columbia Community Connection. Okay. Well, thanks so much, you guys, for joining in today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah. Sorry for all the confusion about the time and stuff.
No, it's fine because I realized I sent you a message saying that we're on Louisiana time, and then I thought we're on Eastern time, and then I all of a sudden looked at my clock and it's like, wait, we're on Central time, which seems a little weird because on the map it looks like we're very far east. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's okay. We got there in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Empire Trio,
Mm.
tell me what you're about and tell me what kind of show can we expect for coming up in the Dalles?
Cool. Do you want to talk?
No, you go ahead.
Well, we're a classical crossover ensemble, which means that we're all classically trained musicians who cross over into the pop or the Broadway or the more popular music genres. So, our first show that we ever did was called From Prima Donna to Post Madonna, how Italians influenced American music in the 20th century. And it was a show which was designed to be educational, and it was commissioned by Lincoln Center in New York City. So, we never really anticipated anything going on after that show. And then once we realized it was going to be a success, we actually changed the name of that show to From Pavarotti to Pop to make it a bit more accessible. And then we got a booking agent, and then we started creating other shows based on all of the music that we love to perform. So the difficulty is that in classical music these days, it's very difficult to get work unless you play with an orchestra or a quartet, and then it's just difficult to make a living. It's a lot of hustling, it's a lot of auditioning, it's a lot of living day by day. And if you're a singer, like Erin is, it's difficult to be accepted in the opera world because you're constantly told you should be doing Broadway and vice versa. So, for example, if Erin would do an audition for Broadway, they would say, your voice is too good, it's too well trained, it's too classically trained, because they prefer belty voices on Broadway these days. So, for the most part, so that's why we decided to come up with our own trio so that we could actually go on tour and do the music that we love and not be kind of pigeonholed and have the freedom to do what we like. So, we've been around for about 11 or 12 years now touring. And the show that we're going to be doing in the Dalles is the Broadway show, I believe, which is all of the greatest songs from our favorite Broadway musicals. And it's difficult picking the musicals because I have a library home consisting of almost 500 Broadway shows.
Yeah, but we'll do things from Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, West Side Story, all the classics.
Yeah. So we can't please everybody, unfortunately, but there's gonna be somewhere between 20 and 25 very popular Broadway tunes in there.
Nice. Have you guys been to the Northwest before?
Yes, many times actually. Yeah,
we have. We've done conferences there. There's Arts Northwest Conference. There's Western Arts Alliance Conference. So that's where we showcase to get work in the Northwest regions and the West Coast. But we have been in.
We just did a California tour in September, October, and we've done Washington State before and a few others. Yeah, we've been in Nevada, Colorado, that area. So, we love it. It's beautiful.
It's very beautiful.
It's very different from the East Coast. So,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere we go is different from New York City. So it's always a breath of fresh air. Put it that way.
Yeah. So is Empire Trio, is that name kind of a nod to New York State?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We did rebrand a few years ago. Originally, we were called O Sole Trio, which was a pun on O Sole Mio, because there were three of us. And that's when we just had the Italian show. And again, we never thought anything was going to really happen after that show. But then
our third left, and then we just decided to rebrand. It was just because everyone kept calling it O Soul Trio, Ole Sole Trio. No one could say it. So we were like, it doesn't really make sense to have an Italian name if we're not doing just an Italian show. So we made it a little bit more accessible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So I've read that you guys have traveled all over the world. What venues have stood out as most unique or memorable for you guys?
I think the Redlands Bowl was probably one of the best. We did that one twice. The first time it was just the trio, and we had about maybe 5,500 people because it's an outdoor.
6,200.
Okay, 62, something like that, 6,200.
Nice.
And then the second time we did it with orchestra. And then it was completely packed. It was about 7,000 people or more. So so that was a really unique, very cool experience. You don't get to perform for that many people normally. So it's very exciting.
Wow.
Any others that you?
Well, it's a question you can answer two ways. There's the big venues, which obviously
like Carnegie,
especially like Carnegie Hall, we played, and Lincoln Center several times, and some big jazz clubs and some famous clubs in London, like Ronnie Scott's, places like that. But honestly, we have a duty to give the same show to every audience. Doesn't matter if it's in a black box theater in the middle of Nebraska. But some of my most memorable experiences have actually been in some of those smaller towns. There was a little opera house in Concordia, Kansas, from the 1890s, that kind of thing, which was beautiful. And then after that, we went out for dinner with all the locals and stayed in a bar till 2 a.m. So it's those experiences. It's not just the performance. It's
it's the people.
It's the people and getting together with the community, which is why we offer outreaches, and we try and get students involved. We try and get kids to join us on stage for the performance. We have choir parts just in case there's a choir at the school. And then it's great for ticket sales, number one, but it also helps bring the community together, and it introduces kids to music. And when we do outreaches, we talk about the music that we do in the show, but we also emphasize classical music and classical training as being very important if you want to pursue an interest in music.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys that classical music and especially like I guess the opera genre is kind of a daunting genre for someone who may not be familiar with that kind of music. And if someone wanted to start exploring like classical and opera, where should they start? What kind of pieces should they listen to be introduced to this kind of music?
I would say, for me, it would probably be Puccini, like La Boheme, just because the music is so glorious and so robust and so exciting. And I think it is a bit more accessible than some of the other composers, but I don't know. I mean, there's Mozart, there's so I would start with the Italian operas, but I would definitely start with, I think Puccini, most people have heard O mio babbino caro or Quando men vo. They're used in commercials. They're used as background in films. So I think that's a good way to kind of just get your foot, like you dip your toe into the opera world a little bit. And then you can explore from there. There's some great French operas, great German operas, great Russian. I mean, you name it. There's some beautiful, beautiful pieces that are just waiting to be explored.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, David.
I was going to say it's a lot of history. I mean, if you go back to the Renaissance period and medieval music and all of that, you'll see how music obviously progressed much slower than it did today, and now it seems like genres are being created every day almost. So it's it's daunting thinking, gosh, where do I start listening to classical music in 300-year history? But listening to the great pieces of music, the ones which are played all over on the radio, like Beethoven's Fifth, Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet, Mozart pieces, Chopin piano music, that kind of stuff is always a good way to start. But there's a lot of great music being written today as well. A lot of it is atonal, so a lot of it doesn't attract people, but there's a lot of really great tonal music being written today as well. So I would say with the access of YouTube and radio that anybody in the world can pretty much access fairly easily, I would just say go online and just be curious and just listen to as much as you can. It's worth knowing that in 2006, Mozart's 250th anniversary of his birth, the CDs that came out outsold the Beatles by almost 2-1. So, it proves that classical music is still relevant and that Mozart's still popular. It's just that we're not seeing it as much in the concert halls, and that's where we've got to get people back.
Well, and I think it's also too, I think Europe really embraces opera. I think Americans tend to be a little leery of it because it can seem elitist. And it can be daunting because if you don't know Italian or you think, I'm not going to understand this, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. You just listen to the music, you just lose yourself in the music. You don't even have to know what they're saying. You can just, it's just like anything else. You can listen to like a Brazilian samba and just be like lost in it. It's the same thing with opera. Classical in general.
And unfortunately, like Erin said, it's classed as elitist right now. But if you go to the Metropolitan Opera, there's 4,000 seats. The top price tickets are about $350, which is a lot of money. But you can get rush tickets for $20. If you want to go to Hamilton on Broadway right now, you're talking like $500 for a rush ticket.
Wow.
And when the Music
Man,
Man came out with Hugh Jackman, the tickets started at $1,250. So a family of 4 going out for a Broadway show was spending $6,000, which is absolutely ridiculous. There's not, people just can't afford that. So when you talk about elitism, opera is actually one of the cheapest places to go and see a concert these days, and you get more for your money because most operas are 3 or 4 hours long. So my advice is, get those cheap rush tickets at the Met. You might end up sitting in the front for $20, and you get to see Aida for 4-hour grand opera.
It's like 2 hours, a little over 2 hours.
So yeah. Do it.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea about the ticket price scale for some of those venues. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's way more than most people can afford. I mean,
it's been a couple of years, but I noticed that some of the public TV stations like PBS will run opera once in a while, and I've noticed that when they do it, they'll have subtitles.
Yeah.
And the stories themselves are just amazing.
Yeah. They can be really beautiful. I mean, La Boheme is about love, two lovers that find each other, and they're both bohemians, and then what one's a painter, and what does she do? I can't remember. Anyway, they're both bohemians and they fall in love, and then I'm not to give it away, but she doesn't make it in the end. But it's glorious. The music is glorious, and you probably heard most of it in some context in film or in commercials or something. So it's definitely a good like stepping stone to exploring the fuller version of it. It's like ballet. It's kind of it's I think it's the hardest form of singing for sure. I mean, there's not like jazz is different because if you can scat sing, that's a very different brain. Like it's a different way of thinking. But in the classical form, it's written. You're singing what's written, and I mean the ranges opera singers have are second to none in terms of any other singer. And the breath control and the stamina and just there's you have to appreciate those things because you listen to a pop singer and yeah, pop singers definitely they have their belts and they have their challenges as well. But the amount of studying the languages and just getting your voice to that level for opera is just a different game.
Yeah.
Really.
Great. So David, I noticed that there was a little write-up on your website about your ability to play the violin and the piano at the same time.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you about that.
Okay. Well, it's something I guess my mom told me I was trying to do at the age of 14. I started playing when I was 7 and piano at 13. And I found the violin more difficult than the piano, but once I had gotten to the age of 13 and started the piano, because of my musical education, the piano, I progressed pretty quickly. So I would accompany myself on things like Beethoven sonatas. So I'd record the piano part onto a cassette and then play along with it because I didn't have an accompanist. And one day the cassette broke, and so I was there trying to figure out how I could play something on the piano and then hold the pedal down and then play the violin. And then I didn't really do much more about that until many years later. And actually, we're sitting in an apartment in Natchez, Mississippi right now. And Natchez, Mississippi, about 2 blocks from here is when I did this for the first time ever in public, about 15, 20 years ago.
Oh.
And I figured out that I was playing Blue Skies, which is a great Irving Berlin tune from White Christmas and a couple of other things. And Blue Skies, the melody is a hit. And so I played it on the key D minor. So I played the open strings on the violin with the right hand bow, and then that freed up my left hand to actually play the piano. And then just by very quick coordination, I realized that it was possible to actually, in many instances, play both instruments at the same time, as long as the melody note landed on a note where you didn't need to place a finger down. But even though I did that, then I figured out that you can actually put pizzicato with the left hand and play things with just the left hand. So like a strumming effect, which frees my right hand up to put the bow down and then play the piano. So I can accompany myself as though I'm playing with a plucked guitar. And then there's also tricks and things. And
it's always a crowd pleaser.
It's fun.
Always a crowd pleaser.
So what I do to add another level to it is to ask the audience for suggestions about how I can play certain pieces, so they'll yell out a name of a, Mozart, Elton John, George Gershwin, Philip, D'Souza, whatever. George Philip D'Souza, sorry. And and then I'll do a theme of variations, and I'll play a given song that they often choose, and I'll do it in the style of all these composers while playing both instruments at the same time. Nice. And it's something that I guess took a little bit of effort to get the coordination right, but now it's something that I've been doing it for so long I can sort of do it in my sleep. So during the pandemic, I tried to add another layer to that, and I learned the flute. And there's a video of me on YouTube playing the flute, the violin, and the piano at the same time. But I couldn't do it for very long because I was craning my neck to hold the flute up and the violin at the same time. It was quite painful, so I won't be doing that again. But it was in a way just to kind of show what's possible with music. And, I know that's a crazy example, but
stretching the boundaries.
Try and stretch boundaries. And then that helps when it comes to things like arrangements. We do lots of mashup arrangements, putting classical music with pop music, that kind of thing, and try and do original arrangements to make them something new, something interesting, just something to make people think.
Great. So, you guys are a trio, and you mentioned that your other member is now in Switzerland at the moment. Can you tell us about Adam Kennedy and what he does for your group?
So Adam is a lovely baritone, and he just adds a nice, beautiful, lush layer of kind of the soprano, baritone, and then you've got David will do backup vocals as well. And yeah,
he's trained opera singer. I met him in Savannah doing a singing competition. And actually, the chap we're on tour with right now, Brian, is an incredible tenor, Grammy nominated tenor. And if he were doing this concert, he would be here now as well. So when we had our original trio, we had a pretty consistent 3 people, and then our guy left, and then since he left, we've had numerous guys fill in the role. So it's just fun. It's fun working with other voice types.
And Adam's great because he's funny. He's very charming. He knows how to. He'll always make jokes about being the third wheel. He knows how to read the room. He's very good at that.
Because we're married, you see. So it's always fun when whoever's the third guy comes on tour with us, because he has to deal with us, a married couple. So it's like he's sitting in the back seat. It's like he's our child.
Yeah.
Mom and dad are fighting again.
Yeah, basically.
That's great. Yeah. What do you guys want to be doing in the next few years musically? Do you want to stay with what you're doing? Do you have any feeling for where you want to take your trio?
I mean, I would love to do things that are more in the style of like Manhattan Transfer, where it's those really, really tight harmonies, but we also kind of write some original things as well. It can be very difficult to try to tour with original music, so that becomes a challenge. But I would love to do something that's kind of that real tight, very like pinpointed harmonies, and David can write those really well.
I did a solo recital 2 years ago with Janice Siegel, who's one of the founding members of Manhattan Transfer, and one of the 4. So we did a jazz concert together, and she's incredible. So I got to talk to her about her arrangements and that kind of thing. As far as the trio, we just want to keep touring. We want to keep doing as much as we can, writing new shows. Other musical aspirations, I wrote 2 operas during the pandemic, both of which premiere, and they've been done several times. And so I went to the National Opera Conference in Houston in January, where there was a decent amount of interest in producing more operas, and I've been commissioned to write 2 more as well. So, my goal is to keep releasing music and spend more time writing as well. I had a solo piano CD come out recently on the Steinway and Sons label of all my original piano music, and I think just doing new things, being creative, writing music. I don't think we necessarily have to reinvent ourselves, but we have to keep coming up with new ideas about what we can do to make what we do different and unique and more interesting, and continue to do mashup arrangements and, like Erin said, tight harmony arrangements. We just want the audience to go away and remember us, and remember that the medley we did from Les Mis was different because it mashed up these melodies, or it was played with a very lush arrangement with different chords, unexpected things like that. That really make people, it kind of brings them out of the situation, but makes their ears perk up and makes them concentrate and listen to us.
Great. All right. Well, David and Erin, thank you very much for joining me today. You're coming to the Dalles on March 7th.
Yep.
And for the Mid-Columbia Concert Association.
Yep.
And I know that those guys are probably very happy to get you on the stage, and we're looking forward to your show in the Dalles.
Awesome. We can't wait. Yeah.
We're excited. I want to say thanks to Patsy for booking us and for being so supportive, and thanks to you for this interview. And we can't wait to be out west. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Well, thanks, you guys. I know you guys got to get going because you're on tour right now in Louisiana.
Yeah, we got a matinee in about 2.5 hours, so we've got an hour and a half drive to get there. So
gotta get getting ready.
Yeah, you bet. Well, thanks again, you guys. Nice meeting you, and hope to see you down the road.
Thanks. You too.
Hope to meet you. Take
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.